So I'm talking about the DOPE project, which is the project I work on at Harm Reduction Victoria. It originally started in 1998, was the first time it got funded, and it was called the HOPE project, which was heroin overdose prevention education. For those of you that were around back then, if you remember sort of 2000, 2001, all of a sudden the heroin supply was very reduced, and as a result overdoses decreased, and that's when we broadened the project. We were fortunate to keep getting funded for it, even though there wasn't heroin overdoses to the extent that there had been, but we broadened it to include all sorts of drugs, and that's when it got the cool title of the DOPE project, which I kind of like better anyway. But you know, back in the beginning, heroin users used heroin, speed users used speed, and you know, these days you're way more likely to come across people that are polydrug users. They're using a whole range of substances, and usually at the same time. So there's a need for amphetamine overdose education. I was surprised how many people out there thought that you couldn't overdose on amphetamines, which, you know, was a really bad rumour getting around out there. But so yeah, the program has increased, and most of it is done in group workshops, the education, and I'll have up to 10 participants at a time, and we'll go through, it can go 2 hours or longer sometimes. We will include everything to do with overdose, like your risk factors, preventing overdose, the really important one, how to recognise an overdose, and then how to respond to an overdose. And this was all before naloxone came into the education kit for drug overdose. So James has already given Access Health kudos, and I'd just like to add it again. They were the first place that were actually said, look, let's just do it. And Dr. Joe down at Access Health was willing to write the prescriptions, and we got together, we had a discussion, and the first workshop took place in August 2013, so yeah, 3 years ago from now. And it was good. There's all these restrictions to doing naloxone education as far as we're concerned, because it's one thing to tell people how to use naloxone, but I think, you know, you actually have to go one step further and put it in their hands at the end of their session, because I think it's actually cruel to tell people how wonderful it is and how easy it is to use, but now you've got to go off and get yourself sorted to get it. It doesn't buy it with us. So when I talk about training people with naloxone, I'm actually saying that we supply them with naloxone as well. They walk away with the education and the tools. So, and yeah, the naloxone workshops are different to your normal, what I said, up to 2 hours or even longer overdose education. As previous people today have already pointed out, the need for a briefer intervention. And so yeah, there was a lot. I personally think there was a high level of knowledge amongst a lot of the people I was seeing as far as overdose, and they just wanted to know how to use the naloxone part of it. And when you get down to all the nuts and bolts, if I've got someone and I can spend 5 minutes with them, educating them, and they walk away with a naloxone kit, because that's the only amount of time they were going to spend with me, I've given them just the important information that they need, and they've gone away with a naloxone kit, rather than a missed opportunity of someone that wasn't prepared to hang around for a bit longer. And I think, Craig, you found that a lot too with people. So you know, it always goes back to my thinking of, you can't really muck up with naloxone. You know, you can't do anything really bad with it. I mean, the worst thing you're probably going to do is put someone into precipitated withdrawal. However, you know, when you weigh that up against saving a life, I don't think there's a comparison. So, since August 2013, 800 participants have been educated and given naloxone. And 700 through workshops, and roughly 100 just via one-on-one. And those could be anything from, you know, not very often, but what I mentioned, a 5-minute intervention, right up to a 20, 25 minute, however long they need, yeah? And I can rattle on, as you'll hear today. So, and out of all of those, it's anecdotal, and I'm sure there's, you know, if I'm saying there's 150 reversals reported, you know, I'm sure there's probably, you know, more that we haven't heard of. Perhaps some of those 150 were the same one. It's not been a really structured way of keeping the data. It's mostly anecdotal, what I hear back from people. So yeah, don't string me up if that's not exactly right. So I was ashamed to know that the USA began take-home naloxone programs for drug users in 1996. I hate the fact that they were ahead of us. But yeah, and this is, I don't know if you can read a small bit, but it was a report called Opioid Overdose Prevention Programs Providing Naloxone to Laypersons. And one of the authors was Eliza Wheeler, who runs the DOPE project in the States. And yeah, she reported that since then it's expanded to 644 programs across 30 states, and they've had over 26,000 reported reversals, which that's just phenomenal. So, like we did, they started off at NSPs, substance use treatment. I actually copied that. I can't believe it doesn't say substance abuse, but yeah, substance use treatment facilities. Just branching out, and we've found the need for that too, like going further than just people that access NSPs, because we know there's a lot of people that don't access NSPs for whatever reason, but they still would benefit from having naloxone. Going back to this report, yeah, and we know from lots and lots of research here, it's usually other drug users that are present when someone overdoses, so it just makes sense that they have the skills and the tools to be able to respond. So these are the places that I'm kind of branching out to. A lot of housing service, like rooming houses, quite often you'll find there's a gatekeeper resident that's, all the people will go to. They've usually got a supply of fits or whatever sort of equipment, and I've found people like that have accessed training through me and then gone back to their residential rooming place or whatever. Quite often there'll be one or two there that'll be the keepers of the naloxone. I'd much rather have it in every room, but if that's the way it works for them, it's the way it works for them. The PATH study is a study that's being run through Burnet to do with people being released from prison, and I've had a few referrals. Like, I'm not sure exactly how it goes. They interview people recently out of prison, and then I think it's a month or so, and then so if I get advanced knowledge about one of those people, the worker will send through a signed consent form with information, and I have access to a doctor that, it's naughty, but this doctor will write me a script if I give the person's details. He'll give me a script for naloxone. So what it means is I can actually keep on doing what I'm saying, and if I'm doing the training, they're actually getting naloxone as well. And if it's a script, I don't just give them a script. We'll go to I'll make sure the pharmacy's got it. We'll go to the pharmacy, we'll get it. Like, I actually put it in their hands. This is one of the kits that we give out, and I rushed to get it out the car, so it hasn't got the full range of products in it, but basically it's everything you need to respond to an overdose. It's got printed information, a disposable resus mask. This has got mini jets in it still, but ampules and so on. The products that Paul showed this morning, I hear where you're coming from. That 10-pack thing is just going to be way too big and cumbersome. People want it smaller, yeah? And I mean, this was probably as small as I could go if I wanted to put everything that's needed in there by best practice. And, there's still arguments that some things should be in there that aren't, such as gloves. But people don't want a big, huge kit to carry around. And, I encourage people not to take it home and stick it at the back of their undie drawer where no one knows where it is. I say take it home, show it to your friends, tell them what it is, tell them how to use it. There's 5 mini jets or ampules in there. If you feel that someone would benefit from holding on to 2 of those and you keep your 3, do that. Like, as far as I'm concerned, the more naloxone that's out there, the better. And just like James said, it just should be standard in everybody's first aid kit. But nobody bats an eyelid if little Johnny eats too many peanuts and goes into anaphylactic shock and there's an EpiPen in the cupboard. I mean, it's as simple as that. And also, just going back to this slide, brief interventions is what I'm finding is where I'm getting the most mileage these days. Group workshops, there's still capacity for that, and there's still places where I can set them up. But a lot of the time what I'm finding, especially with referrals from the PATH study, it will be for one person, but then when I go out to their house, there'll be several other people there as well that will sort of stand around and get the information as well, which, that's a bonus to me. It just gets a bit tricky then about making sure they all get mini jets, because we as a service can't afford to go and buy it over the counter at those prices. But I mean, in an ideal world, I would love to just have, a storeroom full of it so that I can just grab it and go out, hand it out, do the education through some very creative means. I do kind of have like a mini stock of naloxone of my own. And yeah, okay, so just wrapping it up, there's still way too many barriers for people to be able to access naloxone. It's not easy. Somebody has to have a prescription, and like James said, at Access Health, if I do a workshop, the doctor will write the scripts, the workshop will be taking place, there'll be a worker running down to the pharmacy, getting all the scripts filled, and then I'm just trying to stretch the workshop out a little bit longer so that people are there by the time they get back from the pharmacy so I can give them their naloxone kits. So I just really want to reinforce, I don't think it's a good method to just tell people how to use it. Yes, it would be great if every frontline worker was able to pass that information on to every person they come in contact with, but if you go back to it, they're not actually facilitating them to get the naloxone, I can tell someone how to use it, but now, okay, you've got to take yourself off to the doctor, get a script. Doesn't sound that hard, but, people's lives are busy, so they do get to the doctor and get a script because they have to go there for something else. They've got the script, now they have to take it to the pharmacy. And then they have to pay for it. And okay, if you've got a healthcare card, it's $6. What's $6, we say? However, you're asking people to pay for something they might need, they might not need. And at the end of the day, they don't need it for themselves. They're going to be using it on somebody else, perhaps even a stranger. Why should they put their hand in their pocket to pay for it? And I think until we've had way more good experiences of people saving their mates' lives and the word of mouth gets around to where it is at a point where it's more a case of, why haven't you got it, that's what it needs to be like. And then once they go to the pharmacy, and if they get a mini jet, they've got to go back to an NSP to get a sharp to put on it, or vice versa, they get ampules, they've got to go and get the, barrels and sharps, and there's just all those problems. So yeah, as far as distribution goes, I think that's the key thing that we need to look at, and actually getting it out there. I wish Santa Claus would come and dump a heap of it on me. And I'm interested about all them ones that are free sitting out in places too. If I can round them up, that would be good. So yeah, and that's it for me. So thank you.